Simple, all the steps are easy. Why am I doing a tutorial on how to cook rice? And pull off. That's about spot on. Avocado scraps are still delicious, everybody. A one-handed roll, huh? Stick back and adhere. We're going to use a nice, generous dollop of water. I prefer using a serrated knife. This is actually a bread knife. A batch of sushi. I'm going to be making sushi today, vegetable sushi, and here are the ingredients. We start off with making our sticky rice. I'm not particular about the type of rice. There are some rices in the grocery store that tout themselves as sushi rice, but I just use regular rice. It's always worked out pretty well. It's going to have little sugar, rice vinegar, and salt in there to make our sticky rice. I don't rinse my rice, and I use any brand. It's always worked out just fine. We make vegetable sushi because my family does not care for seafood. So we'll just use cucumbers and avocados. I make a sauce for my sushi, which is just these two things, mayonnaise and soy sauce. I use various types of nori. I haven't settled on a particular brand. I feel like there are some that I've liked better, but I like all of them just fine. And then here, I actually don't know what this is called, the thing that you roll the sushi in. I don't usually use it. You do absolutely have to rinse your hands a lot while you're making sushi because of the sticky rice. It is very sticky, obviously. And that's what you need. Don't be too particular about ingredients. It's all fine. I've made sushi actually many times. It's turned out great pretty much every time. The first time I watched somebody make sushi, they were so specific, really fussy about the types of ingredients, say the type of rice or the type of nori, about all kinds of things that I didn't even think I could try it myself. I didn't try making sushi myself for about 10 years because I thought, gosh, this is just impossible to get all these techniques right. But in my opinion, it's actually a really simple dish to make. Just a little, like, it's lengthy. There's lots of steps to it, but simple. All the steps are easy. 2 cups of rice. 2 cups of rice, 4 cups of water, a little bit of salt, maybe, I don't know, half a teaspoon. I'm going to stir it to bring up all the, make sure it's not sticking in the bottom. And at the moment I have it on high to get it up to this point where it's boiling. Now I'm going to put it to low, maybe like a medium to low. Cover. We don't use a rice cooker. We did have a rice cooker for a while. We were promised up and down that the rice would always come out perfectly. It did not. I had this feeling that it would not for us. So yeah, I just use a pan and do it the old-fashioned way. With a very tall pan, it's unlikely to spill over, but as you can see, sometimes it does rise up a bit. Important not to remove the lid while rice is cooking. So just do your best to, I don't know, remove it from the heat or do whatever you need to do. When the rice comes closer to cooking, it will definitely not spill over. But yeah, it might spill over. And then it annoys me because it's hard to clean up. So just let it calm down, calm down, calm down. You want to keep all that heat trapped in there, so don't pull the lid off and stir it or anything. Go ahead and keep it back on there. I'll turn it down a little bit too. But I always try to make rice in a very large pot so that it is less likely to spill over. You have to stand by it the whole time. You really have to watch rice on the stove. Right, with 8.5 minutes to go, approximately. We're still seeing some bubbling, but I don't see any threat of spillover here, so we're gonna leave it alone. You can look, the rice is kind of sitting nice in there, lots of bubbles on top. You might be asking, why am I doing a tutorial on how to cook rice? It's the easiest thing ever, but for many people it is not. And so I'm just going through the steps. I don't know. If you don't know how to cook rice, this is how you do it. Twice as much water as rice. Pretty much any brand will do. I personally don't rinse the rice out. I've definitely read and heard that's very important to rinse rice, but I do not, and it turns out just fine. Cook it for about 20 minutes. Once it boils, put a tight-fitting lid on there, and just make sure it doesn't spill over. Those are the steps. 5 minutes to go. You can see that the rice has settled down. There are very few bubbles at the top. This is a steam release top, so it does have a little bit of liquid that has seeped out. Well, the rice has been cooking for about 18 minutes, so it looks like it's actually pretty well done. You can see all the bubbles have eased off the top. I'm gonna tip it to the side to see if there's any excess water that still has to come up. I see a little bit there. Do you see that little bit coming up from the bottom? So I'm gonna wait for that to completely dry out before I take off the lid and test the texture of the rice. Well, it's 20 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and pull off the lid here. I'm gonna test the texture. Pretty good. It's a little soft, but that actually suits well for sticky rice. You want it to be a little bit softer. We've soaked up a little bit extra water, maybe a little bit overcooked to what we would normally serve on a plate with vegetables and fish, but yeah, it's nicely cooked. It's fully cooked. Oh yeah, so let me take it off the heat. But just kind of pull all the rice up, make sure nothing's sticking too much to the bottom. I don't actually measure anything for sticky rice. A bit of salt. That almost looks like too much salt to me, but it's also a lot of rice. Rice vinegar. Maybe a 1/4 cup. Not too much sugar, so I'm gonna put maybe 3 heaping spoonfuls of sugar in here. Again, it's a lot of rice, so look at this, I spilled my sugar. All right, and then I'm gonna mix this together and give it a taste and see if I wanna add a little bit more. All right, so once it's all mixed together, it should be clumping pretty nicely together. I gave it a taste. I feel like I could use a little more vinegar and a little bit more sugar. About maybe 2/3 of what we added before. Maybe it was a total of 1/2 cup of the rice vinegar and 1/4 cup of the sugar. The texture is great. It's definitely exactly what we want. You can see how nice it's gonna clump. The vinegar, I think, is spot on. Maybe a little less sugar. Right, so we're gonna let this cool considerably. I have rolled sushi before while the rice is warm, but I think when you let it clump together and cool down a little bit, I think the results are a little bit better for the rolling. So we'll let it cool for a couple of hours. I have learned to make a ton of this sauce. Very simple. You add the mayonnaise first, or that much, and then that much soy sauce. So you want it to be completely smooth, and you want it to have a particular color. And the color should be a little darker than this, I would say. would say that's about spot on. And one of the things is that the texture is nice. It's going to be nice to work with that particular texture. Well, I dug around in the fridge and I had this avocado piece left. These cucumbers, one whole one and about half of one. All the other vegetables we have probably won't go very well in sushi, so we're gonna go with these. I struggled to get enough avocado out of that's usable. There were lots of brown bits. It was an old avocado. I wish I'd thought to go shopping and get some more vegetables. Like carrots are always good for this. But I love avocado sushi, so I'm going to use what I have. This is probably enough for 2 or 3 rolls. All right, I do not cook my nori rolls. I do know that that is recommended. You'll see that the nori seaweed wraps are divided up into these kind of serrated edges here. We're gonna cover the entire surface from here all the way to here. We want pretty much just a thin layer. We don't really want to see a lot of the roll through there. We don't want it too thick, but we don't want it too thin. And we do want to leave some room at the end. All right, so it's gonna be hard with one hand, but I'm gonna do my best here. Sticky rice. I've made sushi many times, but this may be the first time that I've let the rice cool this much. I think I let it cool a little too long. It's still gonna be fine. It's still gonna be workable. But I would say let it cool for a little while so it's not steaming hot, but maybe don't let it cool this much because it's just a little harder to work with in my opinion. It actually feels a little thick in some spots here, but it will do okay. All right, under that bowl of water. This is essential. I was rinsing off the fingers. Makes it possible for you to manipulate the stickiness of the rice a little bit more. All right, now we're gonna put down a nice line of avocados. Normally, if they were nicely sliced, they would line up really nice together, but since I'm basically working with avocado scraps, we're gonna do what we can. Avocado scraps are still delicious, everybody. They are still delicious. It's a little thinner than I would like, but I wanna make 3 rolls, so I'm kind of making less avocado in each one than I normally would. All right, and now we're gonna use our sauce and we're gonna be generous. Throw it across the entire vegetables. Right. And then a one-handed roll, huh? Okay, let me rinse my fingers really quick. Oh dear, look at this. Look at this. Novice move. All right, so just gonna tuck it back. Gonna keep our fingers. Now at the end here, in order to get the end to stick back and adhere, we're gonna use a nice generous dollop of water. And that should do it. It's nice and adhered. It's not a very tight roll, but I was one-handed, so that's gonna be my excuse. We'll go ahead and do the same thing with cucumber. I'm sure I'm scandalizing all kinds of people who make sushi and are much, much better at this than I am, but I'm just gonna keep them nice and long. My kids they enjoy sushi. They do not like fish, so regular, kind of traditional sushi with seafood is not gonna work for them. Actually, my older one will, but my younger one won't. My older one will eat anything. He's 13. He'll eat anything. But they love the sauce. They love cucumbers. They also love carrots. I'm going to take 2 hands and wrap this up. Right, we're gonna ignore the fact that this last one here has a couple of bite marks out of it. I do not know how that happened. So this was enough for 4 cucumber rolls and 3 avocado rolls. I went a little generous with the last cucumber roll, which I think might be this one here or this one. It got a little bit bigger because I wanted to use up the last of the rice. And this was exactly 1 package of the nori wraps, so 7 rolls in total. When I slice my sushi, again, I'm sure that I'm just scandalizing many people when I say this, but I prefer using a serrated knife. This is actually a bread knife. I'm gonna slice it in half first, and then slice each of those 2 more times for a total of 8 pieces out of each roll. And the reason I like a serrated knife is that it helps. This is almost impossible one-handed, people. This is almost impossible. Anyway, it tends to, like, they think like it's a loaf of bread. Not at all. Usually you have to kind of slice it and kind of pull it and catch it as it goes. So you'll see one of the things that will happen is like the roll starts to kind of fall apart here. I'm going to turn it over and see if I can do it from the other side. Yeah, I'm just not going to be able to do this with one hand. So you're just going to have to take my word at it. You have to kind of pull, make a nice clean slice once, and then twice, and then each of these. Oftentimes the end needs to be kept a little bit longer, like this end here has a lot sticking out, so I might actually make this one into thirds, 1, 2, 3, wait, 1 and 2 slices, so that the end piece stays more intact and doesn't completely fall apart because there's stuff sticking out of it. All right, this is the roll that I just sliced up here. Here's the end pieces. Ignore my dog chewing away at his dog food. I would say that there's a lot of rice in here in proportion to the amount of stuff, the sauce, and the actual avocado. Again, I was kind of working with a really small amount of avocado, so probably too much rice in proportion. The slices turned out okay. Nicely served somewhat like that. All right, this next one has a little bit better proportion of avocado and sauce. This is the one that I already took a bite out of, so it only has one end. I did manage to get 6 pieces still. There we have a batch of sushi, vegetable sushi. I'm going to be serving this to the kids with edamame. The way that I make sushi is probably unconventional, probably skips a lot of important steps, but you can't argue with those results. It's delicious.
Oh, that's good.
It's good.